first thing is Jeff Beck was not calling my telephone asking me to go and play for him. Where I used to live in Hastings in East Sussex in England, a friend of ours had a studio above a hair salon, you know, hairdressers. A nice studio, sort of this sort of size, but you would never believe it was there. He called me up one day and he said, "You're never going to guess who I've got in the studio." A famous English guitarist. And the only person I could think of was Pete Townsend at the time. And I'm a guitar fan. I'm not a drummer fan. Of course, I like drums and drummers, but I love guitars. And he told me to come up to the studio. Went up to the studio, and there was this green Strat. And I'd just seen a video. I think it was a Bon Jovi Blaze of Glory or something video that Jeff had played. I think, if I can remember rightly, played the solo one, and I knew straight away who it was. So I sort of hung around for a little bit, and Jeff Beck came with this band, Jeff Beck's Big Town Playboys. And I said to the guy at the studio, I said, "You've got to get me in there." Because he lived very close to where we lived, where we grew up. And he said, no, I can't do that. I said, "Come on, you can do that." So I pestered for a whole year to this guy who was helping Jeff build his own studio in his house, in his beautiful house that he's got. And didn't think anything was going to happen. Telephone rang one day, "He wants you to come out." So I had an old transit van, Ford Transit van, like the A-Team van, you know, the A-Team with the red stripe on the side. And I put all my gear in there, and I went out there for a week and met Jeff, and he seemed to like me, you know, and we recorded loads of tracks, and just, it was really for him to have live drums for different styles to play along to. And that's how I got to go out and play with Jeff Beck. The other thing with Jeff was, yeah, it was absolutely awesome. I had no idea that there was no bass player, no keyboard player, nothing. But when this guy started playing, it was just insane. You know, it was as if there was a whole band there. And when I moved, I used to live in America, and when I moved back to Europe, and I moved to France, I had nothing to do. You know, I didn't have a studio there, I didn't have anything. And 2 years I kind of sat around, I was like, oh, you know, what am I going to do? And decided, you know, I'm just going to pick up the phone and start calling people that I knew of that might be interested in doing something with me musically, and managed to get hold of Joe Lynn Turner's assistant, pitched this idea, and about a year, 2 years later, something like that, I think it took about 2 years, through another guy that I worked with, we started arranging these shows, and did all these shows in Brazil. And it was great. He's a really cool guy, you know, it was a lot of fun. Well, I used to use another product, and along with a friend of mine in the States, and I went to Greece, to Athens, to visit another producer, musician friend, who's worked with a lot of acts, and he used Samplitude, and he said to me, "When you get back home, even if it's the cheap Music Maker version, or you know, whatever it was at the time, get a copy of that. You won't be disappointed." And so I got a copy of that, and then I got a copy of the next one up, and I just find it faultless. It's as simple as that, you know. As I've said so many times, it's simple. I find it simple to use. It's not heavy. You know, unless there's a problem with the computer, it doesn't freeze up. And of course the audio engine, you know, they say you can't hear the difference between the different formats of DAWs, but you can. You know, I think you can anyway. So yeah, that's simple. Yeah, and for mastering engineers as well. You know, I know certain countries are drawn more towards a certain kind of product, but yeah, I just think, you know, just for us, it just works a treat. You know, it's perfect. I think it's great that you can you can just double click on a file and this box pops up with everything that you need to do on it, and yeah, everything's just there. It's not complicated. I think a lot of things are made. It's like back in the day when you bought a guitar effects unit. I got this guitar effects unit and it did 500 things, but only 3 of the things on it were worth using. Well, why would you want to make your guitar sound like a spring bouncing across the room and things like that? But I just think it's simple to get around, and yeah, the object editor, just the way that you can cut everything up, glue it back together. The crossfades and everything, a lot, again, with the other product I used, and I think maybe it was me at the time, but, used to get clicks and pops in between things, and it just, yeah, it's smooth. It works really, really well. For restoration, what's encased in the program now, especially especially for doing things like really nice smooth fade outs. There's a couple of instances in there where if you can literally remove any digital clipping that's in there that obviously shouldn't be in there, but from the restoration point, it's great. And also because you can directly add the isotope to SoundForge as well, so you've got these 2 things going on at the same time on your final stem, or yeah, it's another great way to just sit and finalize something in a non-complicated way.